Hello, today I'm speaking with Jon Washington, Senior Director of Product Sourcing and Global Procurement at Diebold. We're talking about how supplier collaboration can be used to increase value. Welcome, Jon.
Thanks for having me.
You know, when we talk about supplier collaboration, there's always this issue of trust that companies struggle with. At Diebold, how do you get over that issue of fear and get to the trust you need for really effective collaboration?
Well, sure. It's a challenge at every company. Fundamentally, you have to have a pretty deep level of trust to build solutions with your providers. And it takes a lot of work. There's no great magic recipe to do that, but it really involves setting a tone with the supply base, telling them what you want to do, how you're going to deliver on that. Also talks about how you will change behavior that you have in the past. You really need to work with the suppliers and have those conversations with them of, we may have done this behavior in the past, but these are the things we're going to do go forward to build the collaboration and trust, and it comes over time. At the company I work at today, we've had relationships that are 35, 40, 50 years old. And throughout that kind of relationship, there's a lot of times where both parties do things to damage the relationship. So you do have to spend time rebuilding the relationship and really demonstrating how you're going to behave differently.
How do you identify areas that are really ripe for collaboration with your suppliers?
So we've spent some time over the past couple of years trying to understand that and try and do that in a manner that's pretty meaningful and unique, and really look for areas where we can leverage. So a lot of times it'll come down to solutions that we have. And the first thing we want to recognize is, how can you develop a solution and realize that there's some unlimited capacity out in the supply chain, that you may have internal resource constraints, and you got to kind of open your mindset up a bit to realize that there's an abundance of capacity out there. And you want to be the customer of choice with your suppliers. You want to be that customer that when they have some scarce resources and you call them on the phone, they're the ones that they'll say, hey, that's the company that we want to do business with, and we'll provide you the resources that we need to help get you the solution that you want.
Do you ever run into a situation where you're concerned about depending too much on your suppliers?
Sure. In a lot of ways that we can do that, we actually have a lot of relationships that, again, are many years old and some new ones. But the supply base has an understanding that we'll do best practice market pricing, we'll benchmark them, but we want them to be the first point of business. So in the relationships we establish, those are some of the ground rules. Basically that throughout the process of a development and an early award, you'll have this business, but we have the right to benchmark and cost compare as we go through the relationship. And most of the time, the suppliers understand that, and they're very willing to accept that.
Does working collaboratively with your suppliers have an impact throughout the organization?
A lot of what we want to try to do is amplify the solutions that we provide, get them to market very quickly. And that involves a lot of collaboration. If you're in a large company, you may have to work with product management, manufacturing, the marketing organizations, and legal. And a lot of times you want to have a collaborative team. And what procurement and supply chain professionals can do is really help facilitate those discussions, help drive the business forward, and we start to have conversations about margin growth rather than just cost outs. And you can really get the team working towards margin improvement collaboratively. So it's a great opportunity for anyone in the supply chain field to drive that kind of business value and improvement.
What about new products? Can suppliers contribute there?
Sure, absolutely. A lot of times I think the first thing is what's the solution that you need. You want to bring in your providers to help you develop those solutions, and also have an understanding of they do things well for you. There's probably some other things that they do that you don't know about. And there's probably some things where you can get a blend of suppliers working together, multiple suppliers working on a solution for you as well.
Can that be true of current products as well?
Absolutely. A lot of times with products or services, you may want to go into a value analysis, value engineering phase to kind of look at function versus value and work with the suppliers on that. And a lot of times what you're able to do in that context is you're able to save on maybe an acquisition cost of a product or service. and you can get an additional revenue stream to that supplier. So there may be an existing product that they've cost reduced for you, but there's some new business coming, so that your spend profile could remain the same, or it may even increase with them. So you're always wanting to provide more value to the supplier.
I know there are always intellectual property concerns. How do you address that?
Those are one of the biggest risks when you talk to people about how do you collaborate with providers. And a lot of the approaches you have to employ are truly that. We talked earlier in the conversation about how you want to reset the tone with the suppliers. This also comes with intellectual property as well. We have examples of joint development agreements, and we'll start through a process that's really non-disclosure. You can move then into a collaboration agreement, which is where the parties come together and you just agree to talk about solutions. And that intellectual property, the suppliers will bring some, the customer will bring some, and you really want to try to work into a model where you could joint share the IP. You may restrict it to certain markets, allow the supplier to, it's for your market, specific for your product. But maybe that supplier has another customer where that intellectual property may help them grow some business. And you can work out relationships with licensing and a share and exclusivity that really helps get a nice benefit for everybody involved.
So it's all about communication.
It's all about communication, it's all about the mindset, and it's kind of all about how you can find a third alternative that maybe didn't exist before.
When you're dealing with multiple suppliers, does that create specific problems that you need to address?
Certainly. I think you've got suppliers that they want to be the sole provider. And in some cases, for a strategic reason, that may make a lot of sense for them to be the sole provider. There's ways to provide those suppliers first look, last look, and sometimes you'll exchange like a preferred market price for their ability to be first and last. And then the other agreements can proceed, collaboration agreements with three parties. So we've done some of those scenarios as well, where supplier A and supplier B are going to work to solve a business problem collaboratively. And it's really about establishing the ground rules and defining that big picture of where you want to go when you're finished. And so kind of working through resetting the tone, talking about how you'll be open and collaborative and where they want to get. Most suppliers will truly understand that they have an opportunity to expand their business with you if they engage in that fashion.
Is it possible for you to give us an example of where you've done that successfully?
We've done some examples recently with a provider for our company that provides product. And what we've been able to do in that case is they had a company that they had invested with. They were a joint partner, and we had a business need of a specific technology solution. They brought that third party in, and we did a three-party joint development agreement and collaboration agreement, and basically developed a solution just out of an introduction with someone else, and that solution was rolled out and is in production currently.
So how do you take those collaborative innovations and identify the value?
A lot of the value that we look at, you can define value in a number of ways. Value could be something that's an acquisition cost savings. There's financial value in that. It could be in a life cycle savings that perhaps maybe you're actually adding costs to the product, but you'll save in the service life cycle. So your service folks may have less service calls to make. And then there's additional value in intellectual property. But basically the way we go about defining it is we start pretty simply. We start with some ideas or work streams that we're working with the suppliers, and we just write them down. It may be simply, hey, we'd like 3 ideas from you, or we have this business problem. Could you identify some potential solutions? So we start really simply with just writing down what those either solutions are or ideas. And we work on a way to measure that value. And obviously, if it's an acquisition cost savings, that one's pretty simple. But then we'll do some market mining and some technology mining. And we may put some value on it in the context of what it could do in the marketplace for us. So those are kind of 3 methods that we use to capture value. And a lot of it really comes in from the suppliers as well. So we get a lot of great ideas from the supply base. a lot of great opportunity to measure value, and we've got examples of very simply setting a goal for our team that said we would like 20 ideas from the suppliers. We put them in a control chart. We walk them through a process basically of, is it an idea? Is it an actual project? What are the challenges we need to execute on the project? And we walk that through its launch cycle. And at the end, we try to make sure that we have some analytics that we can present back to finance. And again, in case of acquisition costs, that's really simple. There's just a delta. But in intellectual property or market, it could be that there's earned value or revenue streams, positive margin revenue streams that we wouldn't have before, and that's how we could define the value.
Right. That's great information. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
I've been speaking with Jon Washington of Diebold. We've been talking about supplier collaboration. Thank you for watching.